What a rush!
Thrill of mine, probably one of the greatest thrills I've had ever having been in this business, to talk to a guy I've just been a fan of his entire career, and that is Joe Animal Laurinaitis. Welcome to Inside Wrestling Radio. Animal from the Road Warriors, of course, and man, thank you so much, Animal, for coming on the program. It just means the world to me. And as I was telling you before we were on the air here, man, just congratulations to everything that's come your way this year, man. I mean, you really been hitting the accolades this year. And how does it feel?
You know, it's kind of like you're getting a re-push, you know what I mean?
Sure.
You got the book, and you got the Hall of Fame, and besides that, you know, the thing with my son in the NFL, I mean, I'm all over the place.
Absolutely, man, and I want to talk to you about all that stuff. I've been following your son's career a little bit as well, and like, as I said, I followed your career pretty much the entire time I've been able to do so. But then real quickly, the new book is The Road Warriors, Danger, Death, and the Rush of Wrestling. It's available everywhere, and it's also on e-books, which you can get out there on the internet, off Kindle, off the iPhone, and Nook, and all that stuff, and you can just have it right there on your iPhone if you want to do that. What was the idea? What was the impetus of putting out the book now, Joe?
I was approached doing a book a few times, and you know, this is really a culmination of Hawk and I's career. There's no dirt, there's no tell-all that this guy was doing this or this guy was doing that. It's all about our matches and the inside scoop on what it's like to walk into a locker room on your very first day in the wrestling business, to be able to take that, you know, kind of like they give you the ball, to take that ball and be able to run with it and be the guy, you know. You know, I got asked to write it. I waited until Medallion Press ended up being the right book company for me to go with, and my ghostwriter, Angelo Liam Wright, was a good guy, and I wanted to, when you read the book, if you listen to it, it is me talking if you listen to the words. All the words, the verbiage, it's me.
And I've read chapters out of it and some clips and stuff, and man, it really is. It's just it's so easy to read. It's a page turner, man. I mean, I got through 96 pages in about an hour last night, man, just getting through that thing. It was really just fascinating stuff. And one of the things that kind of hit me was the early part of your early life. I think you covered in like 7 pages because you wanted to get right to the good stuff.
Well, yeah, I don't want to bore the people with my childhood, you know. I mean, I know that they're here to read about a wrestling book and wrestlers and everything else. You know, I don't waste any time. Yeah. I just dive into WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden against the Nasty Boys.
That was a really amazing. The way you caught the feeling of that night, man, there when you guys went against the Nasty Boys there. You know, you looked over at Hawk and he was shaking and you were shaking too, man. It was really captivating what you guys were going through leading up to probably one of the biggest nights of your career.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Animal, tell me a little bit about way back in the early days when you first got in. I was reading where all you guys kind of bounced at Grandma B's?
Yeah, Grandma B's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was just amazing, the level of you guys that was in there. For the people who might not know, Rick Rude was in there, and John Nord. Who else was in there with you guys?
Yeah, you had Ravishing Rick Rude, you had Nord the Berserker, you had Smash of Demolition, Barry Darso, Hawk and myself, Scott Norton, Flash Norton, that was with the NWO, and you had Nikita Koloff had a broken leg watching us go through camp. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys get out of that camp.
I just can't imagine anybody coming in that bar where you guys were working at and causing any kind of problem at all, man.
No, we didn't have too many problems. That's why we all worked the wet T-shirt contest together. There'd be about 10,000 people there. We never had a problem.
One interesting thing too, and everybody talks about the Hart Dungeon from Stu Hart, of course, the legendary Hart Dungeon. But you guys, from what I read about the Eddie Sharkey's kind of camp there, it was almost kind of as bad, some really rough conditions there. Tell us a little bit about those conditions when you guys were going through training.
Well, it definitely wasn't anything like FCW is right now. You know, it's not the Taj Mahal. It was a boxing ring in the basement of a church, and the ropes are against 2 walls, so you really had 2 ropes to hit off of, and it was absolutely brutal, as hard as a rock. And we had so many bone chips and dislocations of our knees and ankles that, you know, it was absolutely brutal.
Had you ever been a fan, thinking back to those days, were you ever a fan? Because I know you were into bodybuilding and had been a bouncer and a fighter coming up on those hard streaks, man, but had you ever been a fan of wrestling before actually getting involved?
Well, I tell you, the match I went to before I got into wrestling was Hulk Hogan against Nick Bockwinkel in the AWA for the championship. And when I went to watch that, it kind of caught my eye. And I said, wow, wouldn't that be cool to walk out there someday? And wouldn't you know it, who would have known I would have walked down the same path as Hulk Hogan did down, that big, long, 100-yard walkway in the St. Paul Civic Center.
It's crazy to think about all you guys have done, man, and, Japan and just all over the world. Where was one of your most interesting or most fun places to work? And all the travels that you've been through. I know you've been all over the world, man, but if you had to really just kind of narrow it down, where would you think would have been somewhere that just really blew your mind?
Oh, Japan blows your mind every time. Japan's crazy, yeah. I'm the only guy to press time Hulk Hogan over my head in Japan.
I bet those people went bananas.
Oh, they went crazy. They went absolutely crazy.
Sure.
But it was a different appreciation of the Japanese fans are used to that rough and snug type of wrestling, so they appreciate it when you come in there and are very physical.
Yeah, and I read somewhere also that you actually liked it better over there, too, because you were more of a smash mouth kind of guy. You guys liked it more snug and a little bit more stiff. And so you kind of like the Japanese style a little bit better.
Well, I told that to everybody we ever wrestled or worked with. I told, Midnight Express and any other guys, man, I said, hey, lay it in. I want to feel what you're doing. Lay it in.
Joe, thinking back on you guys' career, and I did, I'm from the South here, of course, South Carolina, and there was only NWA here. That was wrestling to us. That's what we grew up on. And you guys, I just remember you guys coming, every time you come into the NWA, it was like the whole vibe of the company changed. And you guys were just amazing, just your look, and nobody was like you guys. And to me, nobody has ever or will ever be like you guys. Did you know you were onto something special when you and Hawk decided to be the Road Warriors?
First of all, some of the best wrestling fans in the world are in the South, and Hawk and I did that right away. I mean, they just are diehard fans. We just went in the ring and did our thing, and whatever the reaction was, it was. We didn't think of it as having anything special or nothing else. We just looked at it as we were working hard, wrestling main event. I mean, I tell you what, we noticed we had something special is this Hall of Fame ceremonies last weekend. I mean, then all of a sudden you have all your peers there. Flair was in the audience as well as a lot of WWE superstars, and you're just going, wow, these guys are here paying tribute to us.
I watched that the abbreviated version on Monday night, and just the emotion you and Paul Ellering had there when talking about Hawk, man, was really got to me because again, growing up on you guys, man, and always you guys just being a cornerstone of this business, it had to be heart-wrenching, when you lost Hawk, man. And can you take me back to that day when you got the call? I mean, it had to be surreal.
Well, I was up there vacuuming my pool, like I always like to do on Sundays, just take it easy, kick back, and got to be about 2 o'clock and my phone rang. And it was one of the photographers, Bob Buller, that I know, and he calls me and says, hey, how you doing? And I said, good, man, what's up? I'm just back in the pool. Anybody called you today? I said, no, what's up? He says, nobody's called you all day. I said, no, why? What's up? And he said, hey, Joe, Hawk died last night.
Wow.
And I just dropped right to my knees, man. I said, no way. Even though he had problems with the interferon, he had a heart problem, the whole works. Hawk had the vibe of invincibility to him. I didn't think it would possibly happen. So, but I was so shocked when it did. My whole world changed after that.
My partner and I got into this business basically because of you guys, and we traveled certainly not to you guys' level, but we traveled the roads together for 10, 15 years doing indies and stuff up and down the roads, man. And you form a bond stronger really than brothers in some accounts, and I just can't imagine getting that phone call, man, and for you guys, the level that you guys were on and as much following as you had, I'm sure like you said, I'm sure it just changed your world dramatically.
Oh yeah, it turned everything upside down. It was there was my wrestling partner, my best friend, one of my, like you say, stronger than brother. Now he's gone, and when you're as tight as we were, who never wrestled each other and didn't wrestle singles, we were synonymous with a tag team wrestling, So it was a tough one.
Joe, was there ever any indication before that day that he was that far, out there, that there's a possibility that he might die?
Well, I suppose there's always that possibility,
Yeah.
But I thought he was on the road to recovery and was doing great.
So he had actually kind of gotten himself cleaned up a little bit. Is that what?
Oh, he was cleaned up. He was cleaned up a lot by that time. Yeah, he was fine. We were going around doing a bunch of speaking engagements at churches and everything else. I mean, he was doing great.
I understand. Also, I read somewhere that you said that there were even more problems that he had that you didn't even want to go into after the book or in the book because you didn't want to demean his memory. And I really respect that, man, because while it is an interesting story and everybody wants to kind of hear it, not everything probably needs to be aired out.
Nah, not right now at this particular time. Maybe volume 2 book down the road a little bit. Maybe I get into a little bit more depth, but I wasn't going to do that to him.
And, it's been 8 years, and does it seem like 8 years to you? Because it certainly doesn't to me.
It's starting to get there. It's starting to feel like 8 years right now. When you go through something like we went through this last weekend at the Hall of Fame, you want them there with you,
Dusty, I think, said that he could feel his presence. Did you kind of get that feeling too?
Yeah. Yeah, you can feel him there.
I know it was kind of just a little small thing that Ellering did when he pulled the little figure out and put it on the podium, and the place just kind of erupted, popped for the guy like he was there. That little stuff like that, man, just shows what you guys have meant to this business. And we're up on a break right now, Animal. But when we get back, I want to talk to you a little bit more about Hawk, and I want to talk to you about some other things, where you stand with the WWE and stuff like that. And we'll talk about all that when we get back right here on Inside Wrestling Radio with Joe Animal Laurinaitis. All right, back here on Inside Wrestling Radio, and today on the program, it's just a great thrill and honor for me to have the legendary Joe Animal Laurinaitis here on the phone with me. The book, of course, again, is The Road Warriors, Danger, Death, and the Rush of Wrestling, and again, it is available everywhere. I know you've been doing tons of book signings, man. How have those crowds been, Joe?
Oh, man, the book signings have been going phenomenal. At the 10 days of the book, we ran through our first order of them, and we had to order another, I don't know how many thousand we had to order, but it was a good sign, and we're, top 9, I think, on top 100 sports autobiographies right now. We just moved the #1 wrestling book on Amazon.com, so it's doing real well.
That's amazing, man, and just all the success in the world to you. I hope this thing just goes phenomenal for you. Joe, let me get into a little bit more wrestling talk here. The Road Warriors were obviously probably the greatest of all time, and I think everybody will pretty much agree with that. What do you feel that the Legion of Doom, what do you feel like you guys' lasting legacy will be in this business? And secondly, do you think if you guys were to start into the business today, if say Hawk was still around and you guys walked into events today, do you think you could, what do you think you would do if you started out in 2011?
Well, I think the legacy that we have is that people could say, and probably agree with it, and which would help us for today, is that we had natural charisma. We had natural charisma, the gift of gab, and had an attitude that you can't teach. That's what I think that a lot of entities don't have in the wrestling business. And if we broke into the business today, I think it would be we still would have that, which would separate us from everybody else. You still have to be able to talk. You still got to be able to do interviews. You still got to have an attitude. You still got to have instinct, and you still have to have athletic ability.
You were speaking about your promos and your ability on the mic. I got to tell you real quickly. I told you my partner and I started basically because of you guys, and man, pretty much every one of those classic interviews you guys would do back in the day, we would just lift it, man. We would just take that stuff. We would just take it and run with it. There was one you guys did, I remember, where I think you were saying something like, while you were sitting at home thinking about being me, I'm out here living my life, running these roads, beating people up and being me. And we took that thing, man, and ran with it for years. It was one of the greatest Road Warrior promos ever.
I'll say one of the ones that people used to comment on all the time. I'd say, hey, you at home with a bag of chips and a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah.
While you're eating those chips and getting fat and getting drunk, I'm out here at the gym working out. So just remember that,
Those were some. I think we even stole that one too, to be honest with you, Animal, because that was what I remember us doing out there on the roads. But those are some of the greatest promos, and you guys were always entertaining, and I always just loved when the Road Warriors would be on the television there. Animal, tell me a little bit about, and of course these are some of the biggest matches people remember is those scaffold matches, man. Tell me about that, and who came up with that idea?
Dusty came up with that idea, and that was probably one of the scariest things, the most frightening things I've ever been involved in. I did about 150 of them, and they were all brutal, every one of them.
You're imposing figures as it is, but I can just can't imagine looking across a scaffold and seeing Animal and Hawk coming at me, man.
It was brutal. Those things were shaking. They were 30 feet up in the air. It was just very unsafe.
Did Cornette ever fully recover from his big fall from the top of that ladder?
No, man, he felt like a bliffet, He was like 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound sack. That's what he looked like when he hit. And he hit so hard. It was, I was covering my face up there trying not to laugh when Boss Man missed him.
Yeah, because Boss Man originally was supposed to catch him, right?
Yeah, I asked him. I said, "You ready?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, here he comes." And Boss Man, whoops.
I remember reading you guys at the time were trying not to laugh, but it was almost you had to laugh in spite of yourself, but just because of the way he looked when he hit that match, it's kind of like a big splat there,
Oh, his knees just totally blew out. I know.
Joe, of course, everybody knows your brother John, of course, works for the WWE, and of course Marcus. A lot of people may not be as familiar with. Of course, was in the Wrecking Crew there. Well, how's Marcus doing now? What is he still doing any wrestling at all?
No. Marcus does computer graphics and his computer design. for websites and stuff. He's been out of the business for a while, and John's doing great up there at WWE. He's running the ship, and they still got it in their blood a little bit.
Yeah, I guess you always do, right?
Well, once you get bit by that bug,
Absolutely. Joe, you had said in another interview that you and Hulk never faced each other because there was just no psychology behind it. Man, and I got to tell you, I greatly respect that, and I agree with you 100% because it seems Vince, and nothing against Vince and how he does his business, the guy's a billionaire. I'm sitting here in Lawrence, South Carolina, but this thing of breaking apart tag teams and putting them against each other and letting them work, or just throwing a couple of guys together, in my opinion, has really hurt the tag team division of wrestling, and that's something that I was always, just a huge fan of, was the tag teams. How do you feel about that, man? How do you feel about the state of tag team wrestling in 2011?
Well, look at it this way. It's so low right now that it only has one way to go. So that's a positive. I think if you just were to get some teams together and let the fans really get used to seeing two guys together for a couple of years, I think they would start to follow tag team wrestling again.
I think there's a market for it because I remember going back into the 80s when you guys were doing the Crockett tournaments and all that stuff and the Memorial Cups and all that stuff. Yeah, that was huge. That was a pay-per-view in and of itself, and for it not to be there anymore really, to me, leaves a void where those great tag teams once stood. And as you well know, the NWA was the mecca for tag teams. That's where all the great tag teams were, and it's just terrible that they're not any out there anymore.
Well, I mean, you could do the same thing over and over again. You could have the McMahon tournament. You could have the McMahon Trophy. You could do anything you want to reestablish it.
Why do you think they don't do that?
I don't know, man. You got to understand too. The WWE also has a board of directors now as a publicly traded company, so you know where the pressures are coming from.
Animal, somebody has made the comment that when Hulk passed, tag team wrestling passed. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, probably a lot of truth to that. One half of the greatest tag team ever that's won every championship belt you can win in tag teams is gone. I mean, if that's who the fans truly follow, who are they going to try to follow next?
Do you think you guys would be doing anything now where Hulk's still around?
Oh, yeah. We may be retired by now, but we would have done that some up to a couple years ago for sure.
Because I know you were kind of bouncing back and forth there a little bit between the Fed and TNA a little bit as well. What was your opinion, Animal, when the Fed put you with Heidenreich for the new Legion of Doom? How did you feel about that? Were you hesitant at all?
Well, I was just trying to be a businessman, and to see if something could work. And the idea was, hey, if it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't. The shame of it all is it could have worked, but Heidenreich blew it.
By getting himself
he was given a golden gift, man. You're becoming one half of the greatest tag team ever in the history of this business, and you don't respect it. That's nobody's fault but his own.
Given that gift.
I mean, there was no ladder for him to climb. He went right to the top. Yep.
Animal, why do you think drug abuse became so prevalent in professional wrestling during the 80s and 90s? What do you think brought all that on? Was it the constant, just barrage of being on the road all the time and just being beat up all the time?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It's a very lonely sometimes on the road when you're on the road 250 to 300 days a year, and you're getting beat up quite a bit too. I'm from the guy that if I get the hangnail today, he's out for a month. If I got a broken leg, I tape it up, I keep going, or a broken wrist, keep going. And you got to be able to mask that pain when you're performing. So it's a personal choice. But then it's a personal choice.
It always comes down to personal choice. You're right.
It was a lot of guys' choice, and then there was also a lot of guys not to choose it too. I was never a guy that chose that. So
And you weren't a huge party guy. Did you ever just step in to Hulk and say, look, brother, you're only hurting yourself, you're hurting us. How did you reach out to him in his worst times?
I said exactly those words.
Really?
And sometimes I'd work for a little bit, and sometimes it'd be on deaf ears.
I had read in your book that there would be times when you'd be laying down getting ready for bed and look out the window and you'd see Hulk and maybe Jake the Snake or somebody jumping in the cab trying to get to the next bar. Was it always like that from the day one?
Not always in the very beginning. Maybe about halfway through the career, it got more like that.
Really? Just kind of
ran away.
Took to that party lifestyle, huh?
Yep.
Gotcha. Joe, listen, brother, we're all the way out of time for this interview. Would it be possible for you to come back next week and pick it up? Because I want to talk to you about James, your son, and his football career. I want to talk to you about you turning to religion and all that stuff. Is it possible for you to come back and do it again with us?
Yeah, man, anytime. Just give me a call. We'll do it again.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you what, we will do that. I will have you back here next week on this program because there's a lot more I want to cover with you. I mean, your history, your career, of course, is storied and just so much more to talk about. And we've only just scratched the surface here today. But that's going to do it this week for the interview portion of the program. Again, the book, Animal, is, tell us the name of that book and give us a little bit of a website plug and all that stuff.
Yeah, man, it's The Road Warriors, Danger, Death, and the Rush of Wrestling. You can get a list of my personal appearances. Will be on www.theroadwarrioranimal.com. And people need to get it, man. It's like you said, it's a page turner. It's a good book. It's entertaining. There's not a dull moment in the book, and it's written especially for the wrestling fan, the WWE universe, and a lot of fans out there, man. That's what it's written for. So.
It is just a fantastic read, and it is, man. I just couldn't turn away from it last night when I was reading through that thing, and just great stuff. And it's available everywhere. Like I said, you can get it on your iPhone, your iPad, your Kindle, whatever you got. You can get it. You can get Animal's book right there.
Yeah, and any Barnes & Noble outlet, too.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. I will have Animal back here next week for part 2 of this fascinating interview, and we'll talk more to him then. Animal, thank you so much, brother, and continue success. Thank you so much for everything you've done in this business.
No problem, man. I look forward to it next week.
All right, well, that's going to do it for the interview. We'll be right back here for more Inside Wrestling Radio coming up next.